Hi, how you doing everybody? It's Mr. Russo again. This is my second video on integers. I'm going to go over a few problems from a prep test for the actual test, and the actual test is going to look very much just like the prep test. Okay, so let's take a look at number one. Here I know I'm adding or subtracting because there's no indication of multiplication, no parentheses. The numbers are not right next to each other. And if I look to the left of each number, that's where I find its sign. So the 6 is positive and the 8 is negative. And if I know I'm adding and subtracting, I'm going to use my adding and subtracting rules. When the signs are different, I subtract and take the sign larger. So I subtracted. To the left of the 8 is negative, so that's the sign of the larger. Negative 2 is the answer. 2 is similar. 3 is a little bit different because it has more numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to group. If I have two numbers that are negative, I'm going to put them together. So I cover up the 8 and I say when the signs are the same, I add and keep the sign. So add and keep the sign. I bring down the 8. 8 minus 7 is 1. Okay, if we look a little bit further down, I get something like this. Here, now I have multiplication. When there's no plus or minus sign in between the number and the parenthesis, then we know that that's multiplication. 0 times anything is 0. And then I have a negative 8 left over. So negative 8 is the answer. Here, again, there's multiplication. A positive times a negative is a negative. And 6 times 1 is 6. So I got negative 6. Whoops, can't really see. So you have negative 6 here, minus 8. And then when I'm adding and subtracting now, when the signs are the same, I add and keep the sign. Okay, let's look a little bit further down at some of these questions here. If I have two signs next to each other, like this negative and this negative, I use the double sign rule. Double sign rule. So if I have 6 and a negative times a negative is a positive, that's 6 plus 8, and then I get 14. I'll do one more just like it. If I have a double sign, if I have a negative times a positive, the answer is negative, and then I just rewrite the other two numbers, and then I use the rest of my rules. When I'm adding and subtracting and the signs are the same, I add and keep the sign. Okay, I'm going to look over at one or two more problems. If I have something like number 15, again, no plus or minus in there, that's multiplication. 2 times 5 is 10. Positive times negative is negative. Double sign rule, positive times a negative, negative. Bring down the 8. My adding and subtracting rule, when the signs are the same, I add and keep the sign. Negative 18 is the answer. Alright, let me go down to number 20. Again, here's where I have multiplication. 9 times 1 is 9. Positive times a negative, negative. Double sign rule. Two negatives make a positive. 6. Positive times a negative is negative. And then from here I have to use my adding and subtracting rules. So I try and group my negatives. I get negative 17. Group my positives, which is just 6, and then I know I'm adding and subtracting, and when the signs are different, we subtract and then take the sign of larger. Alright, that's a quick little review. Hopefully this works.